Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and we made it! This is what I hope will be the final video of our quest system series. In this video, we're going to finally bring together our quest system with our NPCs so that we can use dialogue to accept quests and also complete them. There's going to be a total of 5 different chapters to this one, ranging from fixing some UI manager bugs to accepting quests, deleting quests so we don't get duplicates, making it so we can turn them in, and finally fixing a bug that's been around for a little while about getting and giving items when we complete quests. Anyways, there's a lot to do, so let's just get started. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to do is just get rid of this little bug we've got here where when you open up our mini menu and then close it, you find that if you try to interact with the NPC or really do anything that involves hitting the interact button, your mini menu pops open and close, which gets especially annoying when you're trying to talk to somebody and it's overlapping. Now the reason for this is just that our button is remaining selected so that when we press the submit key, which is our interact button, it's constantly toggling it open and close. So all we want to do is make it so that it doesn't stay selected. To do this, we just need 2 lines of code in our UI manager. First of all, make sure we're using the namespace unityengine.eventsystems. Then we'll just scroll down to where we toggle the main menu open and close and make sure that we talk to our event system, the one we're currently using, and set its selected game object to be null. This will just make it so nothing is selected so that when we press interact, it doesn't do anything. No setup necessary. Now when we get in the game, we can open our menu and hit interact to our heart's content, and it will not cause that mini menu to pop open and closed on us. All right, step 2. We want to make it so these NPCs can actually give us some quests. To do this, we're going to head into our dialogue SO, and we're actually going to head down to the bottom where we have our dialogue options. At the moment, each piece of dialogue could have options after it, leading to new dialogue. And we're just going to add another option here, which is going to be to give us a public quest SO, which we'll just call offer quest. Now that we've got that as an option, we'll just add a field up here at the top of our script. First, let's give it a header. We'll call this one quest offer and make sure that we note that this is optional, as not all dialogue will have to offer a quest. In here, we'll just make a public quest SO called offer quest on end, as this is just where we'll put the quest that we want to offer at the end of this dialogue. Now to make all of this actually do something, we need to head to our dialogue manager and go down to our show choices method. Here is where we, show choices, or if there are no choices, display the end button. Now the first thing we're going to do is just get rid of this event system note here that says to highlight the first button. We do want to do that, however, not all options are going to give us a button to press, and so we're going to put it here so that if choices are displayed, we do highlight the first choice. Now, if there are no choices, the next thing we want to do is see if there's a quest to offer. So here we're just going to say if current dialogue.offer quest on end is not null, meaning if there's a quest to offer, then we want to do 2 things. First, we want to call end dialogue so that this dialog box closes itself. Then we want to call a quest event. The event we want is on quest offer requested. We'll do a question mark just to make sure that there's actually someone listening, and then we'll invoke it, passing along our current dialogue's offer quest on end, meaning we're going to let everybody know which quest SO we want to offer here. Now, if you don't remember how that event works, we'll just pop over to our quest log UI here, where you can see that anytime the on quest offer requested is called, we call this show quest to offer method, which is just what makes our UI pop up so that we can accept the quest. All right, now let's say there's no options and we don't have a quest to offer. In that case, we do just want the end button to go. So we'll put an else statement and copy and paste all of our old logic inside of it. We'll delete the extra set of brackets and just do a double check here to make sure your brackets are in the right places. They can cause problems. And then finally, if the end button's there, we want to auto highlight it. So we'll just copy this event system line from above so that we can just continue to mash the interact button in order to close the dialog box. I'm just going to hit save all, as we have been in a lot of different scripts here. And now back in Unity, I'm just going to right click in our dialog SOs and create a new dialog node. This one I'm just going to call Purple Bob Greeting. I'm just going to add a line here where he says greetings and make sure that it's Purple Bob's face that's going to appear. Everything else can just stay zeros as there's no requirement since this is default text. We'll then use Command D to duplicate our greeting. This one though I'll call Purple Bob Quest Offer. We'll then just change the text to say you seem like a nice guy, how about you like the video? We'll then add in our like the video quest that I created earlier in the series. And just to make things fun, we'll add a required location so that I have to visit the Green Hills before he will say this dialogue. Now let's zoom in on Purple Bob, and I'm just going to zero out his conversations here so we can keep things nice and clean for this video. Let's drag in our greeting, as well as our quest offer, making sure to drag the quest offer to the top as we want to prioritize that, as we will always offer the quest before we do a greeting if it's possible to do so. And now when we get in the game, he says his default greeting because we haven't met the requirement for the quest. If we head up top to the green hills and come back, however, now his dialogue will change. He says the quest dialogue, and there's our quest log. We can accept the quest. We can close it out. However, now when we talk to him again, he tries to offer us the quest again, and it's not there because we already have it, but this is just awkward. So let's make it so that after we've accepted the quest, that dialogue disappears as an option. So what we're going to do here is modify our NPC talk so that after accepting the quest, that conversation is in fact deleted. We're going to begin by heading to our quest event script, where we're just going to create a new public static action. As usual, this will pass along a quest SO. We're just going to call this one onQuestAccepted. Now we're going to want to invoke this from our quest log UI, as that's where our button press is registered. So we'll go to the onAcceptQuest clicked. And right at the top here, it is important that we do this before we do the other ones, as they'll do some strange things to our quest. And here we'll just call quest events onQuestAccepted. We'll do a question mark just to make sure there's somebody actually listening, then invoke it, passing along the quest SO that we want to accept. Now, whenever we accept a quest, we're sending out a message saying which quest was accepted. So now we just want our NPC talk script to be listening. So here, we're going to need to subscribe to those events. We don't want to use onEnable and disable this time, as we are constantly enabling and disabling the talk script. So instead, we'll use the start method to subscribe. And here, whenever the onQuestAccepted message goes out, we're just going to call a new method called onQuestAccepted_remove_offerings, as we want to remove the offering. We're then going to unsubscribe from this in our onDestroy method, which will run anytime this NPC gets destroyed or we switch scenes, that sort of thing. Let's come down all the way to the bottom of this script and we can create that method. This one can be private. We'll call it onQuestAccepted_remove_offerings. And then it's just going to want to take in a quest SO, which let's call accepted quest. Now this part gets just a little weird, as we're going to use a for loop. Remember, you can double tap tab to generate that syntax with most IDEs. And we want to loop through all of the possible conversations. However, we don't want to go top to bottom. Instead, we're going to start at the bottom of the list and iterate our way upwards. So to do this, we're going to make our starting integer I equal to our conversations count minus 1. Because remember, our lists always start with a 0. So if there's 4 elements, the last one will be element 3. Then as long as our integer is greater than or equal to 0, meaning we don't want to go through any negative items in the list, as those don't exist, we'll continue. We'll then just do I minus minus, as we want to subtract our way backwards through the list instead of the usual going forwards. All right, so here's what we want to do with each of these conversations. First of all, let's store it. We're going to make a local variable here called convo, and it's just going to store whichever conversation we're looking at, so we don't have to write conversations I over and over again. Now, if our convo is null, meaning if we somehow got here and the conversation doesn't exist, we're going to do continue. Now, if our conversation has a quest to be offered at the end, and that quest is equal to the quest that was just accepted, that means we want to get rid of this conversation. So we'll just do conversations.removeAt, and here in regular brackets, we'll just add the I, meaning the integer we're currently looking at. That should do the trick. Once again, I'll save all as we've been in a couple of different scripts, and when we get in our game, I'm just going to click on Bob so that we can look at his conversations. I'll have to make sure that I visit the green hills to meet the requirement, and now, when I accept the quest, you'll notice that the quest offer has disappeared. He can no longer offer it, so if I were to talk to him again, he would just go back to his default greeting rather than trying to re-offer me that quest. All right, so now for the next issue. Let's add a like button in here so we can complete the quest. However, if we look at the quest and click on it, we'll see it's completed, and yet when we go back to talk to Bob, he's still just saying his greeting. He has no way to know if we've completed the quest. So let's make that happen. So now we're going to head back to our dialog SO, where we're going to make 2 more variables. The first, let's give it a header called completed quest requirements, and we'll add that this is optional. And it's just going to be a public quest SO called required completed quests. Now in some cases, we might want to require multiple quests to have been completed before we'll allow this dialog to happen, so let's make that an array. Now down below that, we'll make another header. This one will be quest turn-in, and again, it will be optional. And it'll be another public quest SO called turn-in quest on end, meaning when we get to the end of this dialog, we'll try to turn in whatever quest we put in that box. Now at this point, we need to come down to our is condition met, as we're going to need to actually be able to check if we've completed the quests. We've already got a way to check if we've talked to NPCs, visited locations, or collected items, so now we'll just add one more if statement. So here, we'll just type in if required completed quests is not null, and required completed quests length is greater than 0, so there must be at least one of them in that list. If so, then we're just going to loop through each one. So we'll use a for each loop here. We'll go through each variable, let's call them quest, in our required completed quests. Now here what we just want to do is talk to our quest manager and see if that quest is complete. If we pop over to our quest manager, you can see that our isQuestComplete method takes in a quest SO and then just checks to see if all of its objectives are met. Now unfortunately we can't just talk to the quest manager. It's not a singleton and we want to keep it that way. However, we do need some way to access it. So we're going to do a little bit of a cheat here and head to our game manager where we're going to make a reference to it. The game manager is a singleton and we're using it as a bit of a cheat to allow us to talk to the dialog manager as well as our different trackers. So let's add a quest manager reference in here as well. So now we'll just talk to our game manager, get it to hook us up with the quest manager and see if the quest is complete. Though really what we're interested in is if it is not complete. So don't forget that exclamation mark. If it's not complete, then we want to return false, as this method is checking if the condition's met. That said, if all of our quests pass this test, we'll then get all the way to the bottom here and return true. Now to make all this work, we're going to head back to the dialog manager in our show choices method again. Now here, if there are no choices, before we go to offer any quests, let's first see if there's any that are complete. So here we'll add an if statement. And if our current dialog.turn_in_quest_on_end is not null, meaning there's a quest to turn in at the end of it, and now we're just going to use that same check we did in the last script and use our game manager to get a hold of the quest manager, and here just check if the quest is complete, and we'll pass along the current dialog turn_in_quest. So if there's a quest to turn in and that quest is complete, then we want to actually show our UI saying complete the quest. So here we'll call a quest event, and we're going to call the onQuestTurnInRequested. We'll add our question mark to make sure there's a listener, invoke it, and one last time pass along the current dialog's turn_in_quest_on_end. Now I understand if you forget what that event does, so if we jump over to QuestLog UI, you can see here that whenever it's called, it calls the show quest turn_in, which is just what turns on our UI and allows you to click that complete button in order to get your rewards. Now once this is done, the only thing remaining is to end dialog, as we do want to close our dialog box and stop any logic in this method. There's one last thing to do. We need to make sure to add an else if statement here. Otherwise, we will be simultaneously trying to complete and offer quests, which will become a mess. At this point, we'll save all one last time. Back in Unity, we'll click on our game manager and make sure that it knows where to find the quest manager, which is going to be hidden here in our UI manager on the quest canvas. Let's drag it in there. Next, let's go over to Bob, where we're just going to duplicate his quest offer and change its name to be quest complete. Here, we can change the dialogue itself, saying, wow, you did it. You found the like button. We don't want to offer any quest here, so I'll just put none in that box. We do want to add a required completed quest, which is the like the video one. And then we're going to use the same quest here in our quest turn_in, as we want to make sure it's complete. And if it is, we want to go to the complete menu. Here, I'm going to get rid of our other requirements, though, as we don't need to visit anywhere special to be able to turn this in. Now we can click on Purple Bob and add this to his conversation list. Just make sure to drag it to the top so that it's prioritized above the others as long as its conditions are met. All right, when we get in the game, I'll just visit the green hills, accept the quest, and then go ahead and grab the like button, which I need to put in the scene so that we can complete the quest. Now when I come back and talk to Purple Bob, he's happy for me that I've done it, and ta-da, there's our quest log with the complete button. However, there's a problem. You'll notice that when we complete it, the like button remains in our inventory, and I can't seem to pick up this femur no matter what I do. This is actually a problem that's been hanging around for a while, and if it's been bugging you, don't worry, we're going to fix it now. Now the first problem of the femur not being collected is actually pretty easy to fix. If we scroll all the way to the bottom here, in our getItemQuantity method, which is just designed to check how many of a specific item we have, there's a typo. Right now we're checking to see if the slots item SO equal item SO, and unfortunately that's not actually a check, that's setting it. We want to actually check if they are equal. With that extra equal sign, we will now be able to collect as many femurs as our inventory can hold. That said, we also need to find a way to make it so that we remove the existing item. To do this, we need a new method that's going to be sort of an inverse of our addItem method. Sorry, this one is a little bit longer. So here we'll make a public void removeItem method that'll take in the item SO we want to remove, as well as an integer for the quantity that we need to get. We're going to use a for loop in order to go through all of our item slots. And for each slot that we come across, and here we'll just use a local variable called slot to store our item slot I, whichever slot we're currently looking at, so we don't have to type item slots I over and over again. So first off, we just want to skip over any slots that don't match the item. So if the slot's item SO does not equal the one we're looking for, we'll continue, meaning we'll keep going through the loop, but we're not going to run any more logic for this slot. Next, we'll do a check to see if the slot has more of the item than we need. So if its quantity is greater than the quantity we're looking for, because we only want to remove the amount that we actually need. Now, if there is more, we'll just get the slot's quantity and subtract the amount we want, and then make sure that we update its UI so that it shows the correct number. Next, we're going to get the quantity that we're looking for, the one passed in at the top of this method, to go to 0 so that we know we're done looking for any of this item. Finally, we want to account for the situation where we're looking for, say, 3 like buttons, but there's only 1 in this slot. If that's the case, then we want to take all of the items from this slot and then keep looking. So the quantity we're looking for is going to subtract the slot's quantity. So if there was 1, now we only need 2 more. And we'll make sure that we zero out this slot. We'll tell it no longer has an item SO and that its quantity now equals 0. We'll also make sure that we update the slot's UI so that we see the right things up in our user interface. Finally, we can head to our quest manager where we need to just make sure that we call this. Right now in our complete quest method, we make sure to update our quest SOs, we make sure to add the reward, but we don't actually take away the items that were required. We want to make sure to do that before gaining the rewards so that we make room in our inventory. So we'll add another for each loop here. However, this time, instead of for each reward, we're going to check for each objective in this quest SO's list of objectives. Then what we want to do is just see if the objective has a target item at all, so if it's not null. And then we'll also just check that the required amount of that objective is greater than 0. So if we put an objective by accident and didn't add any quantity, it won't trip us up. Now, if that's the case, if the objective needs an item and there's a quantity of more than 0, then we just want to tell our inventory manager to remove that item. And here for finding the item, we're just going to say that objective's target item, and the amount is going to be that objective's required amount. All right, with that done, let's save all and pop back into Unity. With that final fix, things should be working great. We can now get our reward and the item for the quest will disappear. The rewards will show up in our inventory and Bob will not try to offer us the quest again. All right, with that, I believe we've reached the end of our quest system. Hope you found it helpful. If there's any bugs you notice or anything else you'd really love to see, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Otherwise, though, I'm going to be starting a new Metroidvania series. Hopefully, the first video will be coming out next week. Hope to see you in that series. It's been fun. We'll see you around. Until next time, this is Matt with Nightrun Studio. Cheers.